This is episode number 370 of the InnerFight podcast. This is the health and fitness show. Slightly different introduction. No big plug for our sponsors today, Andre. No big plug for writing a review. If you want to write a review,
yeah.
Please. Just do it. I'm fed up of asking. You get some free stuff anyway. Yeah. So that's our new introduction. A little bit hardcore music at the start, and then we're straight into it. Talking today, mate. We're on to a focus topic. We had loads of good traction about our listener Q&A.
Yeah, people really love that.
People really love it.
We really enjoy answering all the questions. I mean, we get so many, so I mean, we try to really answer as many as we can, but
absolutely,
it's always a bit. It goes quite fast the time.
It's funny, isn't it? You sort of look at them and you prepare them, and I'm like, not sure if there's going to be quite 40 minutes here, and then we get into it and just get so, and it's all gone. But listener Q&A is going super good, and we're getting some loads of good feedback on that. So thanks to everyone who's been in touch. It worked as well. I said I'd give out a YouTube video of the movement stuff.
Yeah.
And I've had about 40 people. I even got another email today. So people are listening.
Oh, wow.
Mate.
That's cool.
Super thankful. And I want to know exactly how people are doing as well, how that's going, if you're using that movement stuff. It's a simple thing. It's nowhere near the level of Andre's stuff. But if you're using it every day and you're starting to feel different, it's been a couple of weeks now. So people will start to feel different after 2 to 3 weeks. That's for sure.
And maybe soon I'll come up with a 2.0 version of yours.
Donald Trump.
Junior version.
Mate, mine's like minus 2.0, I think.
Masters.
Yeah, exactly. We figured that today's episode we would talk about writing a program, mate. We obviously get asked as coaches a lot, can you do me a specific program for this?
Yeah.
You pump out a load of mobility programs. We program for people every day, be it personal training. We just had a meeting earlier today about our class program here at InnerFight. I write a lot of endurance programs. In the past, I've written stuff for, at the moment, I'm programming for CrossFit athletes, 2 endurance athletes, 2 marathons, 1 10K, 1 ultra marathon, 1 cycle. Anyway,
yeah, it's very broad.
It's very broad, mate. But where I really want to kick this off is where it starts from. In that someone says, "Can you write me a program?"
I think the first step is that you sit down with that person and determines what is the goals with this program. What are the goals for this client? What do they want to achieve? And why do they want to achieve this goal? I think it's very easy to say you want to achieve certain goals, but if you don't know exactly why you want it, you won't make it, because it's gonna, once things get tough, you'll probably quit anyway. So I think the very, very first thing needs to be goal setting.
Yeah. Exactly. I agree with you, mate. Get a lot of people in, and it's a nice to have, whether it's I want to put 10 kilos on my back squat, or whether I want to run a marathon or something like that. But then when you actually get into it, okay, we're going to sit face to face. We're going to start to break this down. This is what you have to do.
Yeah.
What sort of facial expressions do you see from people in those meetings, mate?
You see people get really both nervous and surprised.
Yeah.
And the way we do it here is that when people come in and they want for personal training or even programming, if they come in person for a meeting, they go through that performance sheet where we kind of sit down and they almost have to sign a contract, sort of, an unofficial contract, that, they're going to commit to whatever they're going to say now, so that they won't just, put out like 20 different goals and dreams and aspirations. Like, they're going to put exactly what they want, and we're going to help them go get it.
Exactly.
So I think there's a lot of different, facial expressions and, odd reactions, and you kind of sometimes I see that people come in and they haven't even thought it through. They want to do this and that, and then they're like, oh wait, I want to go to the CrossFit Regionals. All right, well, are you ready to do whatever, 3 sessions of 90-minute slow row a week, at 5 a.m. in the morning? Are you ready to hit your head against the wall and this exercise? You ready to do, 2 hours of mobility a week? All those kind of things.
I think some of the goals, and without putting people down and sounding negative on people, some of the goals are just like you said there. They're just not really thought through well enough.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to something like CrossFit. I think running is a little bit different, and endurance sport is a little bit different. That, okay, you want to get to a marathon, it's actually, and I've spoken about this before, but it's not your rite of passage to just go out and run a marathon. Your rite of passage goes run 1K, tick, run 5K, tick, run 10K, tick, 21K half marathon, you've got it. Then we can put you up to a real marathon. And it's not about us trying to prolong the period, but anyone can go and run a marathon today. We want to get people to run that marathon in the right way.
Yeah.
So it's sort of really understanding what the steps are. And I think CrossFit is definitely a lot more complicated.
And why is that? Is that, I mean, assumingly that's because CrossFit is a new sport and we don't know yet exactly what it takes.
Yeah.
And also because in general competition in CrossFit is very easy to access.
Yes.
I guess. And yeah.
But as well,
Sure,
when I think, and it's just come out sort of recently, the changes in the CrossFit competition. The CrossFit competition is constantly changing. You know, the first year that they put something like handstand walk in, people were freaking out, like, oh, how could they possibly do that? And then, you know, so it is what CrossFit says, that you need to be ready for the unknown, the unknowable. So it's really hard, like, and I think that's psychologically or mentally, same. What is very difficult for people is that we might sit down and we'll go through and we'll go, well, I can see for the last 6 years, this is what's come up in CrossFit, be it the Open, be it regionals. We'll break down the workouts. We have all that data and we know generally what you need to be good at. And I'm going to train you in those things.
Yeah.
2017 comes around and something that's been in CrossFit for the last 6 years, which is a barbell movement, which everyone loves to do, snatch, clean and jerk, something with a barbell.
Yep.
You don't even see a barbell in regionals. So
it's crazy.
It's absolutely crazy, mate. And I think that's probably one of the, like I say, the hardest mental thing for people to wrap their heads around when they say they want to prepare for CrossFit, when they want to be programmed for CrossFit, is that I'm going to give you this program to the best of my ability with all the knowledge I have, with the last sort of 6 to 7 years of competition under my belt. But beware that maybe there'll be something that I just have never thought of that will come up and could just completely take you out of the game.
Yeah. Yeah, we might be wrong because it's a chaos where it's a sport full of chaos. Like, we don't know what's coming. So we can only assume based on previous events and what the trends are.
Yeah.
And often, I guess in CrossFit, they almost sort of expose what's going to happen in the future in other events, such as like invitationals, like they said. You know, now we're going to make 4 people teams instead of 6 people teams.
Yeah.
We have, you know, tried it out at invitationals, and it seems to be working super well.
Yeah, right.
So I think, you know...
So that's what they did. So the Invitational this year, or in has always been 4 people.
No, 3 years ago it was 6 people.
Got it.
And then 2 years ago they changed it to 4 people teams.
Yeah.
Based on just testing. They wanted to see if they could, you know, be more innovative with the events.
Yep.
How the spectator kind of experience would be, how the athlete experience would be, and how the whole organization experience would be.
Yeah.
And throughout the last 2 years, I mean, they've been able to do a lot more broad testing, a lot more exciting testing, where it doesn't require 6 people. It's quite, you know, a lot of athletes on the floor at the same time.
It's
plus,
quite
like,
busy, isn't it?
organizational wise, it's just a mess, man. Like,
it is
the
a mess.
equipment you need, and an invitational is pretty simple because there's only 4 teams.
Yeah.
But if we talk at like CrossFit regionals, where you're gonna have 12 teams in one heat, like the spectators are just confused, the athletes are confused,
72
and
people on the floor.
You need 30 judges on the floor too, and it's just one big mess. So
it is a mess.
I definitely think this new format is going to be really interesting, especially from the programming side.
Yep.
You can do a lot more like exciting things with 4 people instead of 6.
Yeah, I absolutely agree, mate. It's going to change a lot. But let's get back to it. So we sort of told the client that it's a CrossFit client, and this is, we'll go through a couple of different scenarios here. We've just walked into a meeting with a guy with a CrossFit client. So you sort of said to him, okay, I can do everything in my knowledge, but something might come up, and he's like, cool, I'm willing to sign, I'm all good.
Yeah, I trust you.
How do you build a program, mate? Because I think that's what is interesting for people, hopefully anyway.
So first you need to assess their background, their sports background, because that's going to play a huge factor in, first of all, their abilities and how the program will be structured. Let's say we have a former gymnast. I mean, that's going to make a massive change on the program from just knowing that little fact.
Yeah.
We might need to spend less time on, basic gymnastic movements, and they can spend more time on the more advanced stuff, or more time on weightlifting, as they might be worse than that. Then we need to look at their injury background or current injuries.
Yeah.
To set up the program. So if we know they have had niggles, if we need to do some sort of prehab or rehab stuff, or if we need to work around things. Once all of those things are kind of, set in stone in that meeting,
yeah,
we'll now walk the athlete or the client through an assessment that can either be online or in person, ideally in person, where the client will go through, for me, a movement assessment where they'll go through loads of upper body stuff, lower body stuff, and then some more integrated stuff where we actually see them move.
Right.
So, an upper body movement to test, whatever shoulder flexion could just be to put the hand up against the wall, stand really close to the wall, and try to lift the hand off as far as you can to get as far behind your ears as possible.
Yep.
That could be like a more specific test, whereas if we look at a more integrated test, we could look at how does an overhead squat look in this client.
Right.
So we look at them separately and together.
Yep.
And that's the movement side. Then we can look at the briefing mechanics. We can look at how a client tests on different briefing tests. It could be a max breath hold or breath retention, either after exhale or after a full inhale.
Right.
If there's any really bad scores in that, we might have to put in specific briefing work, because there might be some limitations there.
Yep.
And then I would look at more specific movement mechanics, like have them snatch, have them do pull-ups, have them do a muscle-up, have them do a handstand hold, all those kind of things. So we look at the more sport-specific things that are required in the sport to excel.
So stuff that's likely to come up. So, okay, we know that there's going to be pull-ups in, or we know that there's going to be muscle-ups in. We're pretty sure they've come up every damn time.
Exactly.
Let's have a look. How many pull-ups can you do unbroken? How many chest bars can you do unbroken? How many muscle-ups, or how long does it take? And I think that's one thing that's quite good about CrossFit is there's, it's a common workout for CrossFit competitors, 30 muscle-ups for time. Everyone knows how long it takes them, or how much is your snatch. Let's have a look at that. And so all of those movements that I would say they're more the traditional stuff that's come up, mate, but at least to set benchmarks in what's going on there.
Exactly. Benchmarks is the key word. That kind of gets into the next thing, which is testing.
Yep.
You want to test all these benchmarks because in CrossFit we actually have loads of data. We have loads of measurable, repeatable, observable workouts.
Yep.
Which means that if we have that workout you spoke about, 30 muscle-ups per time, that's super easy to retest.
Right.
And you can see, all right, you want to make it to regionals, let's look at what the average regionals time athlete for that 30 ring muscle-ups would be.
Yeah, exactly.
And you can just see, and you can do that with everything, 5K row, 2K row, Fran test, whatever. You can retest everything. When you do the testing, it's kind of like an exploration.
Right.
You're exploring where this client is good and bad. You're exploring their weaknesses and their strengths.
Right.
From that, you will assess them, and that could be simply like, okay, we look at your Fran time. It sucks, but you can do 100 pull-ups unbroken, and you can do 100 thrusters unbroken, but when pull-ups and thrusters together, you're lacking something.
Right.
Then we can look at, it can be a weakness combination. Stuff like that. It can be the duration. It can be quite a lot of things, but more specifically, it can be how you move in a certain movement. Like, let's take the thruster.
Yeah.
I struggled a lot with thruster workouts, but I would be great in very similar workouts, just not with thrusters. And we realized that my briefing mechanics in the thruster were just not good enough. I didn't know how to brief in the different positions.
Wow.
With other clients, you might realize, their angle mobility is just it's not good enough, which means their torso will tilt a little bit more forward. Each rep will just get unnecessary hard.
Right.
So that's what I mean about specific testing on the movements. Once you have assessed the exact limiter in the movement, you can now attack it.
Right.
So you have addressed limitations, and now you get to work on them.
Yeah.
Then from there, I would create the template. So I would create the structure of their programming.
Right.
Typically, depending on the athlete, if it's just an overall, I just want to get better, then it's a little bit it's a lot less of planning. If we're looking at a client who wants to make it to the regionals, I think you would typically sit down and plan out the whole season.
Right.
So let's say, it's November now, and regionals is going to be in May, and, they have to go through the open, etc.
Yeah.
Then you can look at some, overloading phases, some loading, some deloading. You can be looking at, you want to prepare them for May. Okay, how do you prepare them for May? Well,
so to peak at regionals, right?
So peaking phases, deload phases.
Yep.
You want to plan out the whole season, because to make certain adaptations, we need to go through certain phases.
Yep.
Sort of. I mean, I don't believe that we can go through like just a strength cycle and then a cardio cycle and then we'll be fine.
Yeah.
Because CrossFit is such a chaotic sport. So, but you can still implement sort of small strength cycles, but as long as they're incorporated with, other stuff that we need to prepare for in CrossFit.
Yeah.
So like, peak, deload, strength, sport-specific cycles.
People are now thinking, holy schmozes, I didn't quite realize how complicated programming for CrossFit really is.
Yeah.
We haven't even spoken about the time commitment that you might want to put in there, but that's a really in-depth, or not in-depth, a very normal analysis of what we look at when someone comes for competition CrossFit programming. It is very in-depth, and like you say, I think one of the things that really resonates in there and that stands out for me is your difficulty in cycling thrusters when it's combined with something else is put down to breathing difficulty. You've got incredible endurance, you've got, you're good in all these different areas, you're strong in this, but then when thrusters come up and it's coupled with something else, you sort of fall apart and you manage to pinpoint it. So that shows how we're able to break down performance in those areas. So that's probably about 3% of the population.
Yep.
Let's now address, and I said that we'd take care of all the different parts of the population, so I think it's important that we do. Let's now address someone that, how do you program for someone, mate, that has been, let's go right to the other end of the scale, that has not been active, and folks, you could be one of them, you might not actually believe it, but we get people walking in the gym, and we'll sit down, that sheet that Andre spoke about first up there, and we'll say, what physical activity have you been doing? And we could figure out from the sheet, from their date of birth, that they're 43 years old. And they may not have done, listen to this very carefully, they may not have done any constant, regular physical activity since when they left school. And some of them have left school at 16. So it could be over 20 years since someone has been exposed. This is not unusual, right, mate? I'm not just making this up. This actually happens. It could be 20 years or more, plus or minus, where someone has not done any regular physical activity. They need a program, they need a solution, they need something that helps them. How do you go about those people?
So with those people, it's actually quite a similar setup. Like you still go through the goal setting, the background, the injuries.
Yeah.
You still go through the assessment, the movement stuff. Just seeing, especially if they've been inactive for that long, you can almost be guaranteed that they'll have some movement faults that are pretty, dramatic.
Yeah,
and
right.
If you just start them on a class program or a normal program, they might not be ready at all for any of these movements, both intensity-wise, but also just mechanics-wise. The body can't just go from doing nothing into start doing perfect thrusters.
Yeah.
So I think that's one of the biggest things. So going through that movement assessment, just like we do with newer clients for our fundamentals program. Just taking them through basic movements, seeing simple stuff like how is their body awareness, because that's almost the biggest actually. Because
I think
if the body awareness is bad, man, they're not gonna pick up new movements. If you tell them snatch, they don't even know what that means.
Yeah.
And if they already don't know how to move their own body and then have to try to learn snatch, it's
they're in a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
And I mean, this is reality, folks. This is what happens. You get someone and you put a kettlebell in front of them. You're like, right, you're going to put two hands on that kettlebell. I want you to make your back straight.
They have no idea what that even means.
They'll round their back. like, this is reality. This is actually how it happens. So when we talk about programming, writing a program for people, all these things come into it. And I think the first thing in all of it is just checking how these people actually move. So that's kind of the other end of the spectrum, and from there we'll move people. We'll start to build on what we have to work with. I think that's what's important as well. You might get someone who's been relatively inactive coming in and say, yeah, I've just seen the CrossFit Games, I want to be able to do pull-ups, this, that, or the other. I would never start to work on something with someone that is completely not working. So by that I mean if they can't get their hands overhead or their shoulder back and their arms straight, I actually can't put them safely in a pull-up position. So we start to work on the things that are somehow working, make them a lot better, and then slowly introduce those other things. Now, mate, if we move, we've done sort of both ends of the spectrum there. Let's take the biggest chunk of what we're seeing.
Yeah.
Which, let's build a little bit of stereotype here. We've got someone who's been coming to a class program, be it ours or be it someone else's, and they want to get a little bit better. They want to just, and that's pretty much the brief that we get from a lot of people.
Yeah.
I just want to be a bit better. What's the stages and what can they expect, and how do you break that down to build on what they're doing, given that these people might only still have those 5 hours a week where they'd come to a normal class?
I think for CrossFit clients who come for CrossFit programming, which is some stuff we do and a lot of other gyms are doing, is that they need to take a step back and look and work on their skills.
Right.
So if your gym have a specialty class such as gymnastics and weightlifting like we do, and like I assume most gyms have, I think you should definitely start going into these classes, because I think what goes through their head when they say, I want to get a little bit better, it means do better on the workouts. Most often workouts are won and lost in the skills, at least to some extent.
Yeah.
Like, you can be as fit as you want, but if there's chest to bar pull-ups and you can only do one by one, then it doesn't matter how great you're feeling when you get to them, because you still have to do one by one, and the guy who's super tired and out of shape can still do 20 in a row because he just moves super well. So I think it's just comes down to, looking at efficiency in movements and just realizing where are your biggest limitations, which movements do you struggle most with or feel most uncomfortable with. And for most people, that's the gymnastic movements or the weightlifting movements. Most often gymnastic movements, because that's where I guess the separator will be largest, because you can't mong through gymnastics the same way you can mong through weightlifting, if you ask me. Like, gymnastics takes like a little bit of finesse and a bit of...
Can you elaborate a bit on that for us, mate?
Yeah, like, I think gymnastic takes... You can't... No matter how mong strong you are, and like...
Hang on a second, this is a good one. How do you define mong strong? Don't say you.
Well, if you can't say you, well, somebody who is strong enough to get the work done, but with absolutely the worst efficiency ever.
Right.
Which means they have to put in so much effort.
It's very insulting.
They have to put in a lot of effort for a very simple movement.
Yep.
And they can only get it done due to their massive overcompensation of strength in the movement.
Brute strength, eh? Yeah.
And we often see that, like, in weightlifting, like high rep muscle snatches, and people who can muscle snatch more than they can squat snatch, for example. I think that's quite typical, unfortunately. But you won't see anyone, like, you can maybe do 20 strict pull-ups, but if you can't, you don't know how to do kipping pull-ups, then there's just no in between. If you don't know how to do a perfect snatch, well, you can still get the reps done, rep by rep. But with muscle ups and those kind of things, like, it doesn't matter how strong you are. If you don't know how to do the movement, then you can't just figure it out in one go.
Right.
Unless you're a very, very quick learner.
The life of a monk.
So I think definitely gymnastics is where you can make the biggest improvements. And honestly, mobility work. It's not.
Here we go.
It's not a plug, but
I was going to lead us into this, but you just shamelessly plug in your own programs.
But I mean, if you look at so many like movements, like you can't do a squat snatch. You can't do an overhead squat. You can go to weightlifting 7 days a week if you want to, but that's not necessarily gonna make it that much better.
It's gonna make it better, but a lot slower, right?
Yeah, like of course, forcing yourself into the position is good, and practicing the movements. But if you're simply so limited physically, like range of motion wise, then you might just get injured, or it will take 1 year before you can pass down your first overhead squat. So, and you're not gonna be patient enough to wait 1 year. You will start loading the bar, and then your shoulder's gonna hurt, and then you're gonna keep going, and then you're gonna realize after 3 months that it's too late. So I definitely think that working on the movements, like taking one step back, looking at like a thruster, empty barbell. Let me see a perfect rep.
Right.
Like, can we make this rep better?
Yes.
Okay, we can. All right, we fix your angle mobility. You can now sit so much more upright in your squat, which will result in you being able to breathe a lot easier and load your back a lot less, which makes the movement all of a sudden only half the effort.
Demanding. Yeah. You're not having to put as much effort in.
When we look at a great separation from good to great, it's not that they're have better, capacity or better this or better that.
Just have more efficiency.
These guys are just more efficient. Like every time you do 10 reps, they can do 20 with the same effort.
Yeah.
Simple.
That's why they don't get tired.
Done. You can do all the conditioning you want, but to some extent, mechanics and efficiency in the movements are the limiter. And overall, for all programming, I think this is the biggest missing component. I think there's so many people following online programs out there, which I do myself, and I support 100%. But I think it's so important that you get some one-on-one coaching with someone who can help you. Like, even my coach lives abroad, but I send him videos pretty much like every week, like almost every day. And he gives me feedback, like small things that I didn't know myself, and it makes the world of a difference.
Absolutely, man. And that's, when I'm sort of working with people online coaching, be it on CrossFit movements, I'd always sort of demand that of people, because you cannot see. And I think that's one of the biggest mistakes that people are making. People are taking an online program and then they're doing it, but they're doing it so badly, and they have such a limited interaction with a coach that they're never there to, it takes for a coach, it takes a lot of time. And that's why good online coaching should be really expensive. If you have an online coach that's cheap, then it's not a good program.
No.
You've just taken, you might as well just go over to a website like ours, InnerFight.com, or hop over to, screw it, like someone like Invictus, and just take their class program. Because you're just doing a CrossFit program and you're doing it badly. Whereas if you're going to have a proper coach who's going to coach you online, who's going to write a program for you, he needs to see what you're doing, how you're moving, and how it's going. Unless it's an out and out sort of conditioning based program,
a running program. Like you could see a few videos of them running, and that would be kind of it. And then you can make the program.
Exactly.
There's one movement.
But I think that's somewhere where there's within CrossFit there's a massive disconnection as well, that people are just not seeing that and they're not getting that feedback. Let's jump over to more of the engine building side and the endurance capacity, because that's obviously, it's all very good to be able to move well, but then we need to move for long times. And we program long workouts. We program 40-minute workouts. And mate, I want to kick it off, because picking up on something you said before, like, are you willing to do 90-minute row sessions 3 times a week, literally at a steady state at 55 to 65% heart rate, just looking at a blank wall? And people will say, I want to. And for me, that really is a part of fitness. Okay, you can measure your fitness by the number of pull-ups you can do in a minute, and by fixing those positions that we've said, you can do that. But if you want to have a rounded fitness game, you're going to need to do that basic, like the very, very straightforward stuff. And I think that's where people are not willing to put in the time, and it's actually it's not very hard physically. Do you find rowing for 90 minutes at 130 beats hard?
No.
Boring?
It's just boring. But I always get this question, like, what do you think about? Like, I hate it because I don't know what to think about. You don't.
You
just don't think.
Like,
you just I think eventually you learn to zone out. You're not even there, like you're not present almost.
Yeah, it is
to some extent.
It's a very interesting one, and I think it's actually quite difficult to describe to people because you can't, like, you know, I can ride my bike for 5 or 6 hours, and I've thought of 1,000 different things, you know. But do I have a plan of when I'm going out to ride my bike for 5 or 6 hours? What I'm going to think about? No, you just sort of start to think, and I think this is where people are a little bit too. I don't know if uptight's the right word, but I'll use it. They're a bit uptight. They're like, okay, I'm going to row for 90 minutes. Like, what am I going to do in that 90 minutes? It's like, this is not the cinema. This is not entertainment.
Mate, we used to be entertained all the time with our phones. So
exactly.
I think if people are put for that long, like, they can do it in a workout for 15 minutes. But when you put for 3 hours in a bike and you just have to look out, you know, in the desert or down on your wheels, it's like...
you focus on some different things.
I'm not used to being alone in my head right now. I'm, you know, you're always occupied with either somebody in front of you or your phone or your iPad, and all of a sudden you're there alone and your mind's going to go wild.
And I think that's why that not only low intensity, long endurance sessions to build aerobic capacity are not only beneficial for your conditioning, but they're massively beneficial for your mind. Because if it's like a 15 or 20 minute AMRAP, some people would go like, oh my God, it's 15 or 20 minutes. It's so long. I'm used to doing Fran. It's over in 3 minutes, and I have to suffer for so much longer. And they're like, you know, okay, just give me a 12-hour run if you want. Like, I'm quite relaxed for that because, you know, I've done some ultras that last for 5 days. You know, and it's like when you stop running, you sit and wait to run again. So,
I think people struggle to understand what that 90-minute session will do to their Fran time.
Yeah.
And that's the main issue.
That's another really interesting point as well.
They see that in a program or see a 3-hour bike ride, like, but in the open, most of the workouts are under 20 minutes. What is it going to help me to do a 90-minute? Like, but that's when you need to, you know, get nerdy, get a coach, or do your own research. Like, understand what that aerobic work actually does to you. Like, makes your recovery between your sessions a lot better. It makes your, you know, respiratory system a lot better. Like, there's plenty of benefits, like, from that kind of training, and there's always an intention behind it.
Yes, exactly.
It doesn't mean that you don't have to do a 3-minute interval as well, but you need to tap into all those energy systems, the longer ones, the shorter ones, because they will all benefit each other in an integrated system.
Absolutely, and I think that's probably what people are not really getting. There's a purpose for every type of session, and all of the different sessions that you go through, like, there's a reason. Let's jump back to the class program that we have here at InnerFight. There's a reason why some days it's a 40-minute EMOM of 40 seconds work, 20 seconds rest, bike, ski, row, double unders. It's very simple. You might not be very sore the next day. You might only, you know, your heart rate's going to be high if you push, but you're not going to get the same feeling as though you're doing the current challenge 150 unbroken wall balls. But that is there for a reason, to make you better in all these other areas, and to improve. That will indirectly improve those times. And I think that's where people sort of skip a little bit of a beat and almost sometimes cherry pick workouts as well. I actually see it when people do, like, take online programming, and I've had a couple of clients in the past, don't work with them anymore, that, like, cherry pick the workouts that I wrote for them in an online program.
Doesn't
work.
Like,
why are you not doing that? I didn't quite have time, and da 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 da. And it's like, but that could be one of the most important parts of the week. So I think definitely time in those zones, and time training in all of the different domains, no matter what sport you're doing. It's exactly the same in hopping back to endurance. Like, it's not all super long.
No,
we have a lot of very short stuff that we use. Threshold building stuff. We have VO2 sessions that are an hour long, that are, you know, you could do 8 sets of 3 minutes at 120% effort. I'll explain another time how you get 120% effort, but you do. And with a 6-minute rest, so 4 minutes on, 6 minutes off, you know, something like that. That actually would be only about 5 sets, so 50 minutes.
I think that's a massive takeaway, because especially with running, because it's so easy accessible. You know, often we see clients or people who wants to run a marathon, and then they start running by themselves. Like, they'll just jump out and do, a 5 or 10K, and they haven't done anything before. Like, I've actually never run more than 5K. So the other night I had to do like 60-minute low heart rate session. So I ran 10K.
Right.
And honestly, my joints, like my knees and ankles were sore. I was just thinking, the clients like that train way less, are way less conditioning to do this. Just jump out and do a 10K. Like, that can't be that good. Like,
it can't be good, no.
Like, so I really think if you're a runner out there, like, programming is really important for you too, even though it's such a simple sport. And shorter interval based stuff can make massive benefits.
That's how I'll start with a lot of people. It's quite, it's super simple. They could do 30 minutes of on the minute, run 100 meters. That's all it would be. Lap your Garmin every time you do 100 meters. Let me have a look at that. Let's see how that works. One of the programs I'm training a few guys, 2 guys together who are following the same program at the moment to get ready for a marathon. It was 10 last week, 10 sets, 2 minutes on, 1 minute off. In the 2 minutes on, all I want is sub 5K pace. That's it. And they look at it and go, this is really easy. Instead of going, and this is the other side of it, mate. The psychological side is, instead of looking at it and going, oh, I have to run 8K tonight and it's going to be so boring and it's going to take 40 minutes. They look at it and they go, 10 sets, 2 minutes on, 1 minute off. I'm only working 2/3 of the time. I get a third rest. You see their training peaks the day after. Oh my God, that was the hardest session I've ever done. Couldn't hold it. They start out and they run 4:30s for the first lots of 2. And I'm like, I can see it. It's going to end, because I go through and I look at the laps and it's like 4:30, 4:35, 4:40, 4:51, 4:57. By the 5th one, we're at 5:02 already. And they just can't hold it on. So it's actually those things, and preparing the body to adapt to those different environments and to the different things, I think, is something that is massively overlooked by people. And those sessions will get hard. Those 1 hour sessions, the first 2 or 3 sets might not be that hard. Just damn well enjoy it, because I can guarantee you it's going to...
Later on it will be.
It's going to really, really pump up. So, mate, I think that pretty much wraps up a lot about programming and about different things that we look out for. Any final thoughts, mate, that you want to share with people?
Actually, I have one. I think for a client's perspective, I think transparency is the most important factor for a coach and client perspective. Like, you kind of bridge that gap between the client and the coach with Training Peaks, because they upload their results directly. But in CrossFit, it's a bit more complicated, since we have a lot more, movements and workouts and stuff like that. So I just think, always be transparent. Always know that, some days will be good, some days will be bad, and some days something might hurt, and you shouldn't do what's in the program, or you should ask your coach to change it. I think, like, be transparent, and don't be a hero.
And mate, it's absolutely true. Like, a lot of people, not a lot, but some people that I work with, they'll be like, "Oh, today's such and such and such and such." Like, life is like that, and I'll just move that session for you. We'll just move it to the next day. If they come the next day and go, you've got 2 strikes and you're out, but you've got flu, no problem. I can see you've got flu. I can see it in your Training Peaks. I can see all the different issues coming up. So, we try that transparency. What I'm saying is that transparency is really key for us to keep on helping you. If you're being an outright pussy and you're just sandbagging sessions, or you've just seen it and you don't like the look of it, then you're being an outright pussy and you won't get any better, and I probably won't coach you for very long anyway.
Exactly.
But that honesty to say, like, I've had a really tough week at work, and I might just change it and say, okay, no problem. That pacing, 2 minutes on, 1 minute off pace, instead of 5 minutes, okay, I just want 5:30. Because I know that it's going to make you a better person if you've had a tough week at work. We've all had tough weeks at work.
Of course.
Every week is hard at work here, the reality is. So you're just going to get out and do it. But if you don't have that transparency and you don't have that open relationship, sometimes I'll call people out and I'll say, you've just been soft. But a lot of the time, I sort of understand, because it's real and it's life, and we try and make things work. So I think that the feedback loop that we have from endurance with Training Peaks is super good. And I don't use it for programming for CrossFit people, because it's a little bit, you don't get that data and it doesn't really work quite that well. But for endurance, it's super good. So There we go.
Yeah, I think that's it.
That's been programming, folks. If you like the show, go and rate it. We want to be the best health and fitness podcast in the world. And to do that, we need your help and support.
Yeah.
We need your questions to keep coming in. Winning at InnerFight.com. We need you to share it with your friends. And if you didn't like parts of the show, please mail us. Tell us what you need more of. Whatever focus topics, please keep listening. Whatever focus topics you want to hear, just let us know. We'll try and address them. And if we don't know anything about them, we'll do a truckload of research and we'll put it on in a few months when we've educated ourselves.
That's the best almost.
That is the best. This has been the InnerFight Health and Fitness Podcast. Thanks a lot for listening. Thank you, Andre.
Thank you.